Welcome to This Week in Events for Friday, 18th of July. In this episode, Paul Richardson, Jill Hawkins and Bob Tugavy take a deeper look at some of the news stories from the last 7 days. And we start with Paul Richardson.
One of the interesting things I found this week was an article that came out in Exhibition News. For a long time, we've been focused on everything exhibitions being within central London. And with the advent of some of the developments at Excel and what we now see happening at Olympia, it's pushing that agenda even more. And it was nice to see some regional venues being picked up in the piece. Admittedly, it wasn't as many as we probably liked, and it was the usual riders and runners that were included. It would be so nice to see other smaller venues like Telford included in here and one or two others. But there were the six main big ones, but we kind of need to be thinking about more than just the standard fare.
Do you really? That's it. I find that really interesting because I suppose not living in London, I've always had this feeling that Birmingham and the NEC have had quite a prominent position in the events industry because London being, London is great. London's our capital city, but I've always thought that the NEC has got that position of being a great venue for exhibitions.
But don't you find it that I find it that there's an awful lot of talk about London, and especially the much larger ones with the bigger advertising budgets and social media budgets. But as you put it in the show notes, Paul, I mean, there is life beyond the M25.
We have a whole country, don't we? But we can't deny that London is our capital city, and things like motorways, train links, things like that all come into London. It's far easier for people to come into London than it perhaps is to get to other cities.
Yeah, and part of that is by, I mean, it's chicken and egg, isn't it? Does the transport infrastructure develop around the fact that you've got a critical mass? Or do you build your critical mass because there is a transport infrastructure? I quite agree with you about about the NEC. I mean, it's always been central to a lot of events we've worked on. But you have so many other smaller little venues, tucked away places that don't seem to get picked up on the radar. It's great to see Manchester Central listed in here. Because again, people forget Manchester is a fast-growing city. It's got a huge amount to reasons for people to go. One of the things, just thinking about why the attraction for London, one of them might be the fact that there's things to do whilst at the show. So people may, like some of the peripatetic congresses that travel around major capital cities in the world, they land in London, and they go to London because all the delegates can then go off and see the Tower of London and all those kind of tourist things as well, and making it more of just a trip to see an exhibition. But there are so many little venues tucked away in towns, mid-sized towns and smaller cities. You're looking at what we've got around here. You've got you've got the Leeds, what we Northerners call the Clec Huddersfax conurbation.
The what?
So the Clec Huddersfax, that gold-lined M62 corridor that runs from sort of Liverpool to Hull. You've got the whole of the Leeds area there, and there's a number of venues there. None of them are on the list. If you come south, you've got Sheffield. If you go further north, there's nothing from Newcastle here. You start to think about all the cities that are dotted around the north that are on main train line routes, and they're not on this list. We need to bring more together. We're a national industry.
I think a lot of people get. I had some lovely conversations at the meeting show, which was 3 weeks ago now. Was it? I think. Anyway, one of the things I was talking to some venue people, especially people from up north, where they were talking about, yes, London, you don't have to pay so much on transport because you've got tube, bus, overground. It's really, really cool. And one of the reasons people may think not to do an event outside the M25, use a venue rather outside the M25, because they think transport costs are really going to be expensive. And yeah, at the moment in the UK, going outside of London up to Manchester and other places, it's going to cost you on a train. But will you actually get will you be spending less on the venue? Will you be spending less on the AV? Will you be spending less on just about everything? So in the end, you could, with the combination of being slightly cheaper up north and slightly increasing travel costs, you might actually save money.
And surely it's looking at where your audience is. That I work with a venue, slight plug here, sorry, declared my interest, Yarnfield Park, which is in Stoke, and they get lots and lots of national events because they are very, very easy to get to, from the top of Scotland to they've got this national coverage because they are in the middle of the country. You've got that geographical thing. We have to remember that we don't all live near London.
Or you may not want to do it in London. You may want to have a bit of countryside. If you think like Wyboston Lakes, I mean, if you want to do an event and then give people chance to have a wander amongst the trees and the grass, well, that's a great place for it.
It's interesting just thinking about your point about the cost of transport. If you are running your event, it costs you more to go to Manchester, say. That's interesting. It's an interesting way of looking at it, because if you are one of the people attending, you may be drawing a substantial number of people from the Midlands and the North down to London. So your audience's cost, they may be the ones that suffer the transport cost. You as an organizer or the person running the event and your team may have a lower overhead in transport, but you're passing that burden onto your attendees or your delegates. So I'd say there's quite an interesting relationship to be looked at there in terms of where the cost lies.
I've never thought of it that way, because people just talk about the cost of transport without actually attributing who actually is paying for it. So yeah, if you're going to do an event up in Bedfordshire, Nottinghamshire, anywhere north of M25, the planner and the team, yeah, you're paying the costs. But then if you're dragging people, as you say, away from the north into central London, they've got to find somewhere to stay. They've got to pay for their own transport. It gets costly for them, for the delegates, surely.
Do you think, though, that as we head towards more people using the train rather than the car for environmental issues, because we've seen a lot of that also in the press this week about, be more sustainable about how you get to an event, use the train, don't fly, don't go by car. Trains are far more, I think it's sort of I can't remember the stat off the top of my head, but a lot more ecologically sound than any other transport. That London will actually almost have a resurgence in a way because people can get there easily by train. Every city has a train that goes into London. We can't ignore that, and we can't ignore the fact that London is our capital. And I feel like I'm defending London now. It's our capital.
No.
There's loads of stuff going on.
I totally get your point, but I think the thing is to, as you said earlier, know where your audience is. Go on, Paul. You're desperate to get him.
No, I was just thinking that also works in exactly the opposite. These train lines all come into London, so they allow you to bring all your audience into London. But conversely, they all leave London and go out to the regions. So even if your audience is in London, why not take it?
Oh, but I live in Milton Keynes, and for me to get up to Leeds, I have to go from Milton Keynes down to Euston, Euston over to King's Cross, King's Cross up to Leeds.
That's a bit of a trip.
Yeah. And
And that's probably an issue. This issue came up in the session with Holly from M&IT at the meeting show, when we're talking about sustainability. And one of the things that repeatedly brought up was the rail networks need to be improved, not in so much as having a high-speed rail link, but having more interconnecting links. Because again, if you're going cross-country, it's a nightmare if you're going up and down the country. But that's only developed to service the travel into the capital city. Whereas if we linked them up, so the events industry, 1.4 billion to value industry, we should be able to lean into transport ministers far more to say improve how those railway networks are developed.
we are slightly drifting away from this news item, but I would say, isn't it a great opportunity to talk to the rail companies and say, well, we're going to be dragging about, God, we're expecting 1,000 people, say, to come into London or to go to Birmingham or Manchester. How can we work together to make that slightly less expensive? And besides, we'll get your name out there. You've just become associated with this as a sponsor or a partner or something.
I've seen events do this really well, actually, namely two in the industry where I remember when what's Evcom now, it used to be Eventia. Before that, it was the ITMA. The ITMA had their annual awards do, and it was the do to go to over in Paris. And they chartered a train. Everyone got down to London, and the whole train was full of event profs. It was amazing. The event started on the train.
Oh, wow.
And if they can, and again, going back into those lovely days when I was young, various crowds of football hooligans used to get football trains. So you'd have a particular train full of certain football fans going from one city to another. Why not look at something like that?
I believe CHS did it one year, actually chartered a train or a carriage, certainly from King's Cross up to Leeds as a way of getting people there. And I thought that was really quite clever. That was acknowledging that they were actually going to bring people up from London for the show and to make it as easy as possible for them.
Well, just bring it back to the original, the point that the reason Paul selected this. There must be some way we can rethink travel, some way we think about going north of the M25, because we do, as an industry, we do need to support the smaller venues. Must be a way of bringing them in and getting them used and getting them known and supported by event planners and conference organisers. There must be a way of doing it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's one of those items to feed in. Like I say, there was the discussion that happened at the meeting show. So post that, who's picked that one up and who's running with it. I know they've published the meeting notes from the show, from the session that morning. It's now a case of having a look and saying, right, who's the champion that's going to get behind this? We're quite happily running hard at sustainability, effectively or otherwise. This is a big part of what could be a part of that sustainability platform.
Absolutely. And I did an interview earlier this week with a guy called Raj, amazing guy, what he didn't know about train travel. He's managing partner for a management consultancy called Black Box. And they are, they work with National Rail. They have some lovely stats and charts showing exactly how long it takes to go by rail rather than flying. And if you incorporate all of the time spent at the airport and that sort of thing, it's much quicker to go by rail. The only stumbling block is that it's often more expensive. But he was talking about venues, looking at that last mile. So it's easy to get people into the city centre train stations, but then it's that, how do you get them from from the train station to your venue? If it's an event you put on a shuttle bus, how do you make it easy? And I just thought that was quite genius. So I'd like to give a shout out to him because he was great.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, there must be a way. I mean, you could sell it as go by train, because any other form of transport, you're going to be so stressed that you're going to be so hot and sweaty that by the time you get there, you can't wait to go home. I mean, sitting in a seat on a train is not doing much other than going through your notes or going through your phone, doing a bit of social media, whatever it is you want to do. You've got time to do it without feeling stressed at the end of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had this conversation again in that session. To travel from Sheffield to London for the meeting show, it would have cost us 30 or 40% more. The rolling stock is not quite of the same standard, and the cost and the time is it's about half an hour to 45 minutes longer than going from Doncaster to London. Whereas we have to drive from here, where we're based in the Peak District, through Sheffield to get to Doncaster, that takes less time in the car to get down to London on the Doncaster train. So the crazy thing is we're driving past a major railway station, and it's the disparity in rolling stock and standards and quality. So I'd agree with you, Bob. Apart from if you get on an old train on the main drag down from Sheffield down to London, it's tired, it's old, it needs replacing. You go a bit further, get on the Doncaster line, fantastic. Everything's got power points, there's Wi-Fi, it is geared up, ready for you to work. It's air conditioned. So you sit down, you plug in, and you've got, okay, relatively less time, but you've got an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes from here to London to be able to do work. It's productive time, you're getting things done, it's a pleasant environment. That needs to be on all of them, especially the longer journey time routes. If you're going to be trapped on the train for 2.5 hours, make it a pleasant place to work and exist and carry on.
And if you're organising an event, this is something that Raj brought up when I interviewed him, is that make the train journey part of the event. Send something out to those delegates beforehand and say, here's a pack, vote on something. Here's a pack, read this, come in. So you're coming into the event when you land, when you actually get to the venue, having been briefed on these are the topics, this is what's happening, I've chosen this. And you're actually interacting with somebody before the event, getting them geared up and ready to hit the ground running. And I thought that was amazing.
In other words, set expectations.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just a last point on this, the thing that we did find quite entertaining when we were traveling down to London is we got just a while ago, we got on the train and we were just chatting, and I asked the question, is the Wi-Fi available? And the glib response I got from the steward on the train was, oh, we haven't got any Wi-Fi, we expect our passengers to talk to one another. And I was thinking, great, but and I think that was partly tongue-in-cheek, but it clearly the wrong thing to say to somebody who was just gearing up to do an hour's work on the train and make it a profitable time.
The
To
thing
be
is,
glib, it doesn't work.
well, the thing is, if you're coming from the north into London, yeah, you may well talk to each other, but Londoners don't talk to each other on transport. I mean, when did I ever do that?
That's
They
true.
just look at you funny and walk away. They get big space around you as they sort of move out the way.
That's one of those north-south divide things, isn't it? I talk to anybody on the train. I really do.
Well, before we start offending people and getting a bad name for ourselves, go on, Jill. It's your turn. What's the thing you'll bring this week?
Well, the thing I wanted to talk about, the news article that I wanted to talk about, was written by Christina O'Connell, the lovely woman working for Conference News. And it was about a white paper that was launched this week. And the article's entitled New Research Report Reveals Insights into How It Complements Online Learning and AI. And it's all about face-to-face learning and how face-to-face learning most learning went online during the pandemic because we couldn't do face-to-face. This is sort of in-house training, learning and development, that sort of thing. And now there's a white paper that's been launched about how face-to-face learning is back. It's growing in importance. And it's people are trusting people a lot more than they do online. We hear about deep fakes and things like that. You can't believe everything you see online these days, but actually you can if it's face to face.
So the effects of the lockdown, is it now finally sort of disappearing off, and that people are now that comfortable in face-to-face situations that
they want those back? I think we, as a whole, I don't think we have recovered as a whole as society from lockdown yet. I was at the launch of a gallery opening at Milton Keynes Museum last night, and in the announcement it said that before lockdown they had 60,000 people coming through their doors every year. They were now they built it back up to 40,000, but they were still off the 60, and they wanted to get up to 100. But I just thought that was a good example of we're not quite there yet. We think we're getting there, we're almost there, but not quite.
There's too much talk of, lockdown's done, COVID's over, let's all get back to normal. I think the after effects, especially as you just said, 40,000 instead of the 60,000, that's taking effect. And also people's mental health and wellness.
Oh, yeah.
That's way not recovered. There's so many people now there's so much talk about, oh, we're all normal now, it's all fine. But no, we're not. It's just not there yet. And it won't be for a long time.
I totally agree. And there'll be small companies out there, and I'm sending my best to all of you that your bounce back loan will be finished next May. So we're still paying a bounce back loan. We had to take, as a small company, and Paul's nodding as well, we had to take a loan out from the government and with interest to get us through this. And that will be paid back next May.
Wow.
So, yeah.
On the bounce back loan thing, there's a few nefarious people advertising online, and I've had this conversation with our accountant about those people doing it. Is a number of people have found a route to write off that bounce back loan by phoenixing their businesses, because they're getting to a point where they close the business down and write off that debt and then re-emerge the next day as something else. Now, it was a subject that was brought up, but I've no interest in doing that, because I think that speaks volumes for who you are as a person and how you run your organisation. We will pay our bounce back loan off. It's gradually going down by small increments, and it makes me cry a little bit every time I see the money going out of the bank. But we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have been trading. We would have had to lose people if we hadn't used it. So there's I think the repercussions of the pandemic are still long to be felt. Especially in this industry, especially because it changed people's habits, it changed how they went. I know this is taking us away from your piece of news about this white paper that was produced, and is it there? Interestingly, as a white paper, is it a true white paper? Is it a piece of absolutely clean white paper, or is this a small piece of propaganda dressed up as white paper?
Well, that's my worry in a way, in that I do question any research that, I mean, a white paper should be not just an essay or a sales tool. It should have genuine meaning, and it should have genuine validity in what it's saying. And in a way, I worry that a venue that's focused on face-to-face, saying, interviewing, training companies that their livelihood is based on face-to-face, and then putting out a white paper that, yay, face-to-face is back. Part of me thinks, well, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Of course you're going to say that. I would have loved to have seen a bit more robust, that everybody in the white paper sort of seems to be, yes, it's great. Yeah, because that's what you do as a living. That's what you do.
Does it actually cite any research?
They went out to 25 different training companies, and they've quoted them through the white paper, but they haven't actually said, they haven't put the figures in that out of 25, 15% said this or anything like that.
No,
So
not great, but
that's my worry, in that I would have loved to have seen some comments from delegates in there, some people actually going through the training and the benefits.
Was there any counterpoints from any online training companies or anything else, or did they just talk to face? Because it's almost that. I mean, that's somebody marking their own homework, isn't it? Really, that's saying
exactly.
It's like me saying everybody should be using PR, and here's two other PR agencies who are active in PR who will tell you that PR is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You're going to get that. It introduces a massive amount of bias.
Oh, it sounds so much like a cigarette company going, smoking is good for you.
Well,
I mean, it's a bit extreme, but it's how it feels, isn't it?
It does a bit. And I was really, when I read the article, I thought, oh, that's fantastic. That's a really good piece of research. I really was enthralled and really buoyant, felt really buoyant by it, to say that, yay, this is great. And then it was and I digged a little bit deeper, that I thought, oh, yeah, it's, as you say, it's like cigarette companies saying that cigarettes are great.
I want to say something slightly positive, though, because, again, as I said earlier, this assumption that now lockdown's done, COVID's down, everybody's fine. So maybe outside the industry, people are going, well, of course, face-to-face educational and training sessions are better. Of course they are. But it's taken so long for people to recover from that it shouldn't be an assumption. We should actually do some research and just say, well, actually, yes, it is preferred, but people have a problem with it because of, and then you can cite the research that explains why it's still a problem.
I remember looking for research during lockdown for an article I wanted to write about the benefits of face-to-face and how yes, everything's gone online, but come on, we need to get back into face to face again because it's so great. And I remember looking through academic papers, and it was about 50-50. That people were happy with face to face, but then also people were happy with online because of the flexibility, and they could work at their own pace and things like that. And actually, I came to the conclusion that a combination was good. My daughter is at Coventry University and she has ADHD, and she goes to lectures, so they have that face-to-face element, but then they're also recorded, so she can then replay them at her own pace and go through. And when they do the face-to-face sessions, they assume that you've already watched the recording, so you're coming in to discuss it. And I thought that was a really good way of doing it, so that you've got some online to do as you want to do it at your own pace, but then you come together to actually discuss.
It's a bit like Open University, where you do a lot of your study at home, and then you have those regular big meetups up somewhere
Yeah.
it is, and Milton Keynes, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. I've got lots of friends that work there actually.
Well,
But
there
I
you
think
go.
my main point here was, one, it's great that face-to-face training is back and it's positive and people are seeing it as a positive, but I just wondered about the robustness. And I'd love Wyboston Venue Management, Wyboston Lakes, that have put the white paper out to come back and go, well, this is what we found. And these are the people that said, no, it wasn't. And it was 80% or something like that. I'd love them to actually come on and chat about it.
Again, just to be a little fair, why Boston Lake? Great work on sustainability.
Absolutely.
It's a lovely
Yeah.
looking place. I would love a free invite. Thank you very much. It's a great place, but looking at this research they've done, this white paper, it's one of those things that a teacher would mark off could have done better.
I think so. Great shame though, because I really wanted to believe in it.
Yeah.
One other thing is, sort of sitting quietly listening to this and just thinking around it, is when you get to this point in the recovery process out of the pandemic, are we surveying the survivors from the pandemic? So are these companies that will be that will be enthusiastic about this, because these are the ones that have come through? So,
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Isn't it?
So
Yeah.
if you were if you were a face-to-face company doing training, doing educational stuff, and for one reason or another you fell by the wayside and no longer in business, all you've got is online people. Yeah, interesting.
and you've got people who are catching and capturing the market, because you've got reduced suppliers in the same, presumably similar sized market. So everybody's turning around saying, yeah, it's boom time. Everybody's coming back. Well, it is boom time because you've got fewer people in the marketplace supplying that audience. So therefore, it looks like boom time to everybody, because supply and demand, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
again, having the document citing the sources and the number of respondents and the companies they talk to. So, as you said, Joe, we need that balance of online training against face-to-face training, just to get that balance there.
I would have really liked it, and forgive me if they did, but I couldn't see it anywhere in the report, if they'd have gone out to delegates and actually the people, the impact that it has on training, the people actually doing the training and talking about the benefits to them of being face to face rather than online. That's what I'd have liked to have seen. That's how I think they could have made it a bit more robust, but that's a whole nother it could be a whole nother body of work, couldn't
Just
it?
to finish up on that, then, does it sound like everybody's going face to face? This is brilliant. This is what we should be doing. Are we then forgetting the people who have still got certain issues regarding being amongst other people and in crowds, who need the online version? I mean, we're not leaving behind the online training, are we? I mean,
No,
because there's still going to be people out there, either because they're at distance or they've got certain issues, whatever reason, they've chosen to only go with the online version. I mean,
that was partly my point about when you're surveying one part of or one slice of the market.
Yeah.
It's you've asked face-to-face companies who said, is face-to-face good? Is it the right thing? Is it booming? Is it coming back? You're going to get one viewpoint. And there's also that scary when you're being interviewed like that, you don't want to be the one person who's saying, no, it's all doom and gloom, the world's ending, we're great. And everybody else looks around and goes, well, they're in trouble, aren't they?
Yes.
You don't really want that sticks the head above the parapet and said, oh, no, everything's terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That was my only worry about it. But it's very beautiful. It's very nicely done. But I just wish it was a little bit more robust in its,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Right, let's move on to the next one, shall we? My
Okay.
one. I'm doing this one. This is good. So I'm going to mention the C word.
Go on.
Christmas.
Yay.
Christmas is coming. Is everybody ready? I know it's July and already the industry's talking about Christmas. In particular, there was Julia Child's Management Christmas party checklist, venues collection, which is I'll come to that one in a second because that's a really good one. And Church House, unforgettable Christmas parties at Church House. The Church House, great venue, lovely place. But the reason I'm quite excited by the venues collection is their Christmas party packages. They're upfront and saying out loud, by looks of it, low and no alcohol options.
Yep, absolutely.
Has anybody seen that declared? Unless I'm not looking in the right places, I've got a feeling they're probably the lone voice in this.
I couldn't see anyone else being that upfront about it, and I'm sure there will be other venues that will offer it, but I don't, party packages tend to be exactly that, packages. So you buy X number of bottles, and I've seen, again, declare interest, venues collection, or a client of mine. Thank you, Bob, for bringing this up, but it is, it's quite, it is, it's such an inclusive step, I think, especially around Christmas when we do all feel a bit forced into drinking and boozing and Christmas parties and overdoing it. And I just thought it was a really, really good and inclusive step to actually do that.
Yeah. Before we move too much further on with that, sorry, Paul, but before we move on, why are we talking about Christmas in July?
Because people, I mean, normally Christmas packages get launched March, April time because people need to, most a lot of Christmas parties get booked by PAs or other event organizers, especially corporate, and they need to get that booked. They need to get that in the diary. They've got a date, and there are only so many Thursday, Fridays, which tends to be a good party day in December. So yeah, people they get booked out.
I can imagine there's some central London venues that have got waiting lists going years.
Yeah.
So, Paul,
one of the it's interesting we're talking about this, and you asked the question why now, and with venue clients as well, the packages have been going out since the end of March, but they're going the market, and where you're seeing them is in the B2B communications. There's none of the B2C communications have started yet, and they won't start until after the summer. They'll be September, October time. But the B2B stuff, as Jill said, it's people having to get corporate diaries and that scramble for, we don't want it the week before we break up. We want it the week before that. And then you're trying to shoehorn 250 companies into 3 venues over 2 days. It becomes quite a bun fight to get yourself into the right place at the right time, the right venue. So now gives people that opportunity to at least start to look, and also for the venues to understand what they've got, for them to be able to look at, we know we've got X amount of capacity, how full are we, what do we need to bring anything extra in? Interestingly, when you're talking about the alcohol-free stuff that's being promoted, is how are we going to cater that? If this is something new that's coming in, is there going to be a big uptake this year? So there's a bit of experimentation going on in what's been put out there, because we're testing the water, because most places, and culturally, we seem to be swinging to anything that's relaxing and out of hours and enjoyment must be lubricated by alcohol. It's normalizing people not wanting to drink is probably quite beneficial, but then they're going to need to know how much bring it down to a very crass minimum. How many bottles of wine do we need, and how many bottles of orange juice do we need? And can you? It all brings complexity into it as well, doesn't it? Because you've got a bottle of red and a bottle of white on each table to simplify the thing, and that's what goes on. But then when you say, well, we'll have a bottle of orange. Well, I don't like orange, or I can't drink that orange, or it's got bits in it, or it's smooth orange, or is it from concentrate or not from concentrate? It's a far more complex proposition once you start to open up the flexibility, which is why I think a lot of people may have swerved it in the past.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, of course, is this was highlighted on a LinkedIn post I saw coming from Eventwell, where they were attending an event and it was all inclusive. So all the bottles were on the table. You bought them already as part of the plan. You then paid extra for non-alcoholic drinks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've had that at so many events, or the only non-alcoholic drink on the table was fizzy or still water, mineral water, and there were three of us not drinking, but it was such a hot evening that even people drinking were drinking the water, so we ended up with nothing there. And then it was, oh, okay, could we get perhaps Diet Coke? Great. Could we, any non-alcoholic beer? And they were all paid for, absolutely. But with the venues collection, they do a package that is 10 Peroni, 10 bottles of beer, 0, or Beck's Blue, 0, or they do 2 bottles of 0 white wine, 2 bottles of red, 0 wine,
Oh, nice.
sparkling
Nice.
wine, Wild Idle, Wild Idle, can't even say that, and then 10 bottles of non-alcoholic beer as well. So it's not just orange juice. You are actually having fizz or red wine or white wine, but a non-alcoholic version, which I think that was the key. It's not just, oh, we'll give you some bottles of Diet Coke and some orange juice. It's actually like for like in a way.
Yeah, I would love to see a venue going vegetarian, non-alcoholic first. So if you wanted meat and if you wanted alcohol, you had to ask for it.
Well, it's tricky in that, again, sorry, we're talking about the venues collection here. For sustainability reasons, the venues collection are plant first, which means that they still serve meat, but the meat will be a smaller part of the plate.
Okay, so it's a reduction in that.
Reduction of, yeah,
Okay.
so it's plant first. So the
Yeah.
majority on the plate will be plant-based, and all their oh God, I feel like I'm a walking advert, sorry. All their desserts as well are dairy-free
Nice.
because of the
As-
carbon associated with
yeah,
dairy, basically.
but as Paul was mentioning earlier, is there's that association with actually any party, whether it's Christmas or not. You're going to go to a party, or how much can I drink? And there's a whole separate conversation to be had about whose responsibility is when someone has too much to drink, because I don't think the rules and the behavior of service taking care of that. But it's still that natural assumption that if you're going to go to a party, you're going to have a drink or 3. So if this helps to break that and let people see there is another way, another option, that's going to be good, yeah?
I think so. I think normalizing it because I know we've gone off tangent a little bit with alcohol, but I've done quite a lot of research into I've read a few books anyway about not drinking, and there's a really great book by Jason Vale talking about quitting booze. And he talks about that alcohol is the only drug that we consume that if you say you're giving it up, people go, "What? Why?" And they look at you as if you're some sort of alcoholic. If you say you're giving up smoking, oh, good for you, that's great. But giving up booze and suddenly you are, oh, you must have a problem with it. It's seen as a very big step to do that. And
Ooh.
I've given up a few times. I do drink. People that will know me from events know I do drink. But sometimes I do have times where I don't drink. And I remember one time I think it was the meeting show. There was an after party at Chelsea, at the nightclub at Chelsea, and it was an event where it was £50 a ticket and it was free food and free booze all night. And I went with some clients and I said, I'm not drinking. And some people were going up to, because it was free, people were going up and getting drinks for other people. And there was this one guy from an events agency who kept going up and getting us drinks, and he bought me back. And I said, "Oh," before he went off, I said, "Oh, I'm not drinking." Made it clear I wasn't drinking, and I said, could I just have a tonic water or something like that?" He came back and it was vodka, had vodka in, and I took one sip and went, "Oh, I've got the wrong drink." Put it down, and this happened a number of times through the night where he kept getting me vodka. And then at the end of the night, somebody said, "Oh, how are you feeling?" I said, "I feel fine. I haven't drunk." And he said, "Ah, yes, you have. I've been buying you vodka all night and you didn't know it." I nearly punched him. He didn't have any clue why I wasn't drinking. Could have been pregnant, could have been on medication, could have been an alcoholic recovering. But people still feel that they are doing you a favor by giving you alcohol like that. Shocking, isn't it?
It's a weird.
It is.
The amount of peer pressure that goes in.
Mm.
I mean, I've been to the meeting show quite a lot of times now, and it's always the end of the first day when somebody brings out all the bottles. I mean, this is separate to what we were talking about Christmas and why we're doing the venue planning now. But yeah, end of the meeting show, and I think Tech Live, I suppose, some of the exhibitors will pull out the crates, and then there's only one person who panicked and thought, "Oh, we've got to cater for everybody," and pulls out a carton of orange juice. One carton of orange juice. That's going to make do for all the non-drinkers.
Yeah.
So
I have to say, can I just give a shout out for Delegate Wranglers? Because at the meeting show, they had drinks on their stand at the end of the first day, and they had 0% Peroni and they had non-alcoholic fizz as well. And I just thought, what a brilliant step. That was just fantastic. It was just totally normalized. And I'm there with a couple of clients. We're just both drinking 0%.
That's brilliant.
Isn't it?
There is another thing to be mentioned. This is close to home. There are some people who just simply don't like the taste of the liquids that carry the alcohol. So don't like the taste of wine. They don't like the taste of beer. They'd rather have something else. So just go back to your point, Jill, about a like-for-like substitution. If you've got non-alcoholic and alcoholic wine on the table, then that still only helps a certain number of people out. That it may be that you find it unpalatable.
That's very true.
I have a 26-year-old youngest son who still tells me that beer tastes like dirt and water mixed together.
You haven't brought him up properly. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah,
you should be ashamed of that.
We don't take him out in public for that very reason. But he says he finds it unpalatable, so he doesn't drink beer. But if all you've got is alcoholic beer and non-alcoholic beer, it's a case of, right, what on earth am I?
That's very true. And could it be triggering for somebody that actually is going through the steps of AA or something like that doesn't want that? Yeah.
Also, I find it. So when I stopped doing the networking that happens at the end of the first day. Instead, I will go out for a walk. And I've been telling people that. What it is that when you're when you go to where the alcohol's served, where everybody collects, where the networking happens at the end of the day, everybody seems to know each other, and everybody's got a glass in hand, or a glass of wine, bottle of beer. I feel so excluded because there's nothing for me to drink. So I don't do it anymore. I just go off and rather have a walk, get some fresh air, just wind down a bit.
Yeah.
And that's exclusive. But if everybody's talking about inclusivity, then venues and whatever happens at a venue, you've got to start thinking more about the people who don't want to drink alcohol, can't drink alcohol, or really, really shouldn't drink alcohol.
Yeah. And it not to be an afterthought or a really obvious, I think, because I've always had this, being vegetarian, I hate it when I go to an event and everyone's got this amazing plate of food that has been carefully crafted, and then the vegetarian main course comes out and it's a bowl of pasta. Brilliant. Doesn't look anything like the others. And that's why I love it when actually mine does look like the others. I think that's fantastic. That's really inclusive.
Yeah. It looks like we're all three of us are vegetarians, which is great. Because I've been vegetarian for like last 3 years, I think. I can't imagine never going back. The problem I've had at events is, so you've gone to a nice hotel, there's a lovely presentation, and there's like 3/4 of the table is for meat eaters, 1/3 of the tables for vegetarians. And then you talk to the meat eaters, and they're all going, "Oh, this is really lovely. I didn't know vegetarian food tasted so good." And then you look at the table, you go, "Oh, it's all gone. You
Yeah,
have nothing to eat." And that's another thing. This is why I think vegetarian first, alcohol free first, because anybody can do that. But
I
if you're a
totally
vegetarian,
agree.
you can't. If you don't drink alcohol, you can't.
There's also that thing of if you're at an event, like a massive event, you know, the big award dues, and you've put down your vegetarian, but you're one of the last tables to be served, and suddenly they come to you and you go, "Yep, I'm vegetarian. I did request that. Oh, we've run out." Because the meat eaters will look at that and go, "Oh, actually, I fancy that. Yes, yes, of course, I put myself down as vegetarian," and they get the veggie dish.
Or you get people who are late invites who the person who booked a table of 10, and then the substitute or the late coming person then announces to the waiting staff, i'm I'm vegetarian, I'm vegan, so they get the dinner that was originally planned for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it must, my heart does go out for the catering managers who have to organise all of this in the background. It must be an absolute nightmare for them, because they're the ones that then going to get it in the neck because somebody didn't get, there wasn't enough of this or there wasn't enough of that, whereas it's the selfishness of other people that's dragged them into this. But just going to, and I'll shut up in a second, but one of the points about going out now and going early is, if this is something of which an event booker is mindful, it gives them an opportunity the venues have got an opportunity to pick up those places where those people looking for that kind of service that's more inclusive will book. So you could get a first mover advantage in that marketplace. And one thing I've known over the years, and you two are probably the same, to get something great, you then dive on social media, you then promote it, you then give. So the positive ripples that can come out of doing something a bit more inclusive earlier to get people on board, the positive vibes that come out of it afterwards, further down the line, are pretty good.
Oh, definitely. And I think there's a definite focus at the moment on non-alcohol and being inclusive. You know, there's a lot being written about inclusivity in the events industry, whether that's through neurodiversity or accessibility or age or gender or whatever. There's a lot about inclusivity, and there's also a lot about non-alcohol, because we are an industry of boozers. And is that really a great thing for us and our industry? And I wrote a column on this actually a while ago, God, before lockdown, talking about what's the point of going to a networking event, getting so smashed that you can't remember anybody that you met.
Yeah.
I've seen it so many times. It's not networking, is it? And I know certain magazines have rules where if their staff go out to a networking or they're hosting an event, they have one or two drinks and that's it. They've got to stop. That's because they're representing the company.
But that's, if we're talking about this in a non-consumer environment, everybody there is a visual representative of the organization for whom they work, and that carries through. So if you're there in an employed capacity, then you should have enough nous and savvy and self-restraint to think, I'm the chief executive of this Fortune 500 company. Maybe I shouldn't be lying smashed out of a tree across the table, half naked, at the end of the night. There's a bit of reputation management to be thought about here, and a bit of, what are the right protocols? And if you want a glass of wine with the meal, have a couple of glasses of wine with the meal, but know where the line should be drawn.
Yeah.
And not your personal line that says I can drink 3 bottles of red and still stand on one leg. Yeah, it's what looks right, what feels right in that environment.
Trouble is, though, when you work in the events industry, it's very, very easy and tempting to just you're doing all of these interactions with people and alcohol's involved. I remember when I used to I was part of the PR team for the meeting show when it was launched, and I remember, wow, getting into London on the Sunday, doing Sunday evening drinking at an event. And then Monday, getting up, being on the show floor for 6:30. By 3 o'clock, there was another event to go to that we were managing, we were writing about things, and there were some drinks, and then some other drinks that evening. And then you'd go back to the hotel, and the clients were all in the bar, and so you'd go and join them in the bar. And I think, and then you're drinking till 2 in the morning because these are my clients and they're drinking, and it's we should really be chatting. This is how you bond. Getting up the next day at 6 o'clock and repeat for the whole show. And then I just went, I can't do that anymore. And it was the next year that I went, I'm not drinking for the whole show, just not drinking, not doing it. And that's when I got my drink spiked.
Ooh.
You see, that's interesting as well, because in that scenario is how much does that, the pressure you're under, but how much does that impinge upon your performance?
Oh,
do
yeah,
your job?
absolutely. It's
And-
hungover
and
for the whole of the show.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to stand on a moral soapbox and pontificate without having at least admitted that, yes, I have sat in meetings feeling so absolutely and terribly rough that I completely failed to engage with what was going on. I mean, I was considerably younger then
Yeah,
and
snap.
far more naive. At meetings in Bruges, our host quite chirpily introduced me to Belgian beers, these fruity kind of things, and I treated them like they were the standard beers at home. Back then about 3.7, 3.8, and they had to pour me into my hotel room, and then I was completely useless for the next day. But that, I would say there's an element of naivety and youthfulness there. But there's also that if you've got a responsible position at all, and you need to be functioning properly the next day, that needs to be taken into consideration. I mean, fortunately, my boss was one of the two people that plied me with the alcohol, so it's his fault. But I probably at that time should have known a bit better and been a bit more responsible.
There's almost like a badge of honor in a way, that especially in the exhibition industry, where I remember doing, oh gosh, in my 20s, exhibiting. I worked for a publishing house and we exhibited at DB World down in Olympia, and then going out, a load of exhibitors, we went out to Break for the Border and I won the Tequila Slammer competition. And then I went back on the stand the next day and we were all sort of comrades in a way, that all of us were just sort of, oh, this is great. This is, that was great last night. And it was that breaking of boundaries between us, but we probably didn't make any sales that day.
Anyway, that's why we're talking about Christmas in July.
We've gone off tangent to alcohol,
Just a
haven't
little
we?
bit. But it is an interesting thing, and I think it's the industry does need to change. There needs to be some leadership on it, I think. It'd be interesting to see how this year's Christmas parties go, and hopefully some of the venues and some of the planners are willing to report back about what the alcohol sales were like, what the behavior was like, and just get some measurements to see if there is there may not be anything to compare against yet, but it'd be interesting to see what the subjective view of it, where people were drinking less, whether the behavior was a bit better, or how many staff returned to the office the morning after.
Or even what the uptake was. I will be asking them in January what the uptake was of non-alcoholic packages. What percentage of overall alcohol sold was non-alcoholic?
That would be a good small indicator.
Wouldn't it?
Not representing how the industry is going, what the trend is, but as an indicator, that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I agree. I will find that out.
I think we've come to the end. I think we've done our items.
I think that was great.
I think we're done. So thank you very much. And should we do it again?
Well, I think we should. How about
Yeah,
same
why
time
not?
next week?
Sounds like a plan.
Great.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Bob. Bye, Jill. See you next week.
Thanks, Paul.
See you
Bye-bye.
next week. Bye.
Bye.
And got.